Yeah, and I don't know if you we want to start the conversation now. Maybe I should formally start it because now that I've introduced myself to your audience, I still have to do the job of introducing you to mine. Can you talk a little bit about yourself as far as I like to have conversations about like people's backgrounds because I talk a lot about my background and how it's influenced my political thought. Talk about a little bit about how you grew up, your relationship with politics, where you grew up, any kind of religious thought, that kind of stuff for a couple of minutes and get a nice grounding of who is Vaush,
Yeah.
the person.
I never had much of a religious inclination. My family was agnostic, the only agnostic wing of a larger family that came from the South. They moved over to California, and I grew up in a middle-class family in an upper-class neighborhood in Beverly Hills, which they put me there because of the school district, which was wonderful. And of course, you fear not for crime in Beverly Hills. Nothing really happens there, nothing bad at least, apart from, I assume, all the white-collar crime. I grew up and I assumed sort of the default political position of a young and sort of bright boy, which is a libertarian, because I was very self-centered and very much of the opinion that everything I had ever done for myself that was good was exclusively the product of my own ingenuity, and that everything else bad that had happened in the world must have naturally been a product of other people's intellectual or moral failings. And I thought that for a good long time. I was never a reactionary, though. I never thought like, oh, why are black people in a bad position? Like, oh, because they suck. Oh, why are women in a bad position? Because they suck. I just kind of thought for the most part that people were on sort of level playing fields, and there were probably some larger systemic issues that maybe we just need the right person to sort out, and that's it. It's a simple problem. But when I got older, I got exposed to different people. One of the earliest political figures that I got exposed to was, you've probably heard of him, a guy called Destiny, who still streams on Twitch. He didn't do politics very much back 10 years ago, but he was one of the first live streamers, and he was a edgy opinion boy, and his perspective was very similar to my own, edgy, libertarian, very self-centered. But my perspective on politics was challenged a little bit when I took an AP World Government class. In my senior year of high school, we had a phenomenal professor at Beverly High, I think Professor Hinojosa, who really opened me up to the idea that there was a lot of ambiguity to governance that I hadn't really considered before, that it wasn't just a binary, like, are you good at it or bad at it? Are you smart or dumb? And that understanding ambiguity, I think, opens one's perspective up. I also had a friend at that time, a very unlikely friend who was an adopted immigrant from Brazil who had had a very difficult childhood. And she was brown and had a very different perspective on life. So, but my worldview was getting pulled in a bunch of different directions. And when I went to college, I decided instead of going into a hard science, I would go into political science, which I hated. So I switched to sociology because political science was full of stuffy know-it-alls. And I really, really enjoyed that. Destiny got more political with time, still my favorite live streamer up at that point. And I was a prominent member of his community because I'd occasionally go on and argue with him. Over the years, this would happen more and more frequently. I moved further and further to the left, college education, exposure to different people, and further radicalization of the online left-leaning pipeline, 10 years ago, there really wasn't that much in the way of like a prominent left-leaning political base online. Now it's very different. Yeah. So with time, I did this more and more, and I finished my degree. I got a degree in sociology with a minor in communication. And after I graduated, it's like, well, okay, I came from a family with a decent amount of money, but I'm kind of shit out on my own now. I'm no longer in Los Angeles. I'm up in Northern California, and the job market there is just trash, and I have to wait a bit before I can move because my partner is still finishing their degree. So in the meantime, fuck it, I'll stream, Why not? And because I had a little bit of prominence within Destiny's community, I had kind of like a pre-existing audience who would check me out, like, oh, hey, look, this asshole went ahead and made something, like, let's look at that. I guess over the course of maybe 2 or 3 months, the numbers that I was getting went from a fun little hobby to, wait, I'm making more than minimum wage, to, wait, I'm actually making enough to, call this a potential career. And since then, it's just been up and up. I'm a libertarian socialist, a very big fan of the idea that people should be in charge of their own lives. And I'm very much of the opinion that many of the systems people believe are meritocratic and liberating are actually quite repressive in nature. And that's generally what I argue against in my stream.